Hey guys, it's me, Pokemon Cherry Bear HD, and today we have a special treat in Best of the Rest Hive Kakuna edition, and I am not alone. I am once again joined by my good friend Tristan.
What's up, everybody? Look, it's Tristan here, aka Trissy, aka Tristan, of course. Yeah, part 2. We have Best of the Rest, something that we just actually came up with. So, basically, if you did not watch the first one, this is basically what we're doing here is we're taking the undrafted mons from Hive Kakuna, and we're trying to make a team with them. I did Hive Weedle before. You should check that out if you haven't. This time, we have Pokemon Cherry Bear HD, Jarrett here, making a Kakuna team. And how do you feel about it?
Man, I love this team. Like, I'm gonna say right now, there's some mons that definitely should have been drafted. Like, that were not. Like, I'm straight up, I'm willing to say on the record here, Kakuna, I don't know what you're doing when you're drafting, because there's some nasty mons that were not drafted and can make such an amazing team, at least in my opinion. So I'm excited to show it all.
Oh, just flame them.
Yeah, well,
just flame them,
you know what?
dude.
No, I will say right now though, I haven't looked over their teams, but there are some interesting mons. Like, they drafted Diglett and Groddle on the same team. Zern, I saw that. I respect it. I'm not flaming you. You're good, but everyone else, unless there's something that really stands out there, everyone else is on notice here. But
And to kind of give some an example, you only see Jared's screen, so he'll have to scroll here around. But I'm looking at the doc too. But he's talking about their stuff such as like high tier threats that people usually think about drafting. Like tier 1, we have Hoopa and Manaphy. People really value those sometimes. Then we even go down, we have Excadrill. How is that not drafted? Like, Sand is so easy to set up in this generation. Like, you could easily do it. Scolipede, I know people love it because you could pass speed, and even here you can have a Z move on it. So Swords Dance with speed boost, you could sweep with Scolipede. It is so easy to do that. Like, Scolipede is such a threat in this generation, especially in a league with Z moves that you could actually put on it, and that you could pass speed, and that you can Swords Dance. It has the coverage to be a threat, but it doesn't even stop there. Like, go over to tier 2 here, and we see stuff like Blacephalon. I get kind of people don't like it because it's so frail and stuff like that, but I mean, it will sweep people. Trust me. Don't at me about it, because I will, I'll show you examples of it sweeping people. Then we have stuff, I personally am a big fan of Vigorouspeed. I love it so much. I get the speed is a little bit lackluster, but I get Milotic being undrafted. What's that about, really? Like, that's one of the core staple bulky water types, like maybe behind like Suicune, but it's like it's one of the staple ones, and it's not drafted. Kakuna, what are you doing, my dudes? Volcanion, it's trash. Just gonna skip over it. Gonna go. I get most of 2 not being drafted. Entei, amazing fire type. It was in mine of Weedle, so Weedle and Kakuna, that you guys have something fucked up right now, so it's like you guys better fix that for real. Entei's amazing. Looking through here, Lucario is pretty good. I get why it's not drafted. Mimikyu, I don't understand why it's not drafted. I think it's really good. I think I saw you clinch a playoff spot with it, if I'm not wrong. On top of that, and then we go Slowbro. Kakuna, what are you doing? First Milotic, now Slowbro. Where's your bulky water types?
yeah, I was gonna say, and Manaphy. Like, now that we're looking at this, I'm like, wait, did they not draft water types? Like, what's up?
Like, come on now. Then we look tier 3. It doesn't stop people. It just doesn't stop. We have shit like Haxorus, which is a huge offensive threat. It's not the best dragon out there, but it's pretty damn good, if I did say so myself. We're in Gen 7, people, and Alolan Ninetales was not taken. What is wrong with you, Kakuna? Get your shit together, dude. Like, come on. Even into 3B, I would say. What? We have Gardevoir, which is one of the premier ones. Incineroar wasn't drafted. It has Intimidate. You could do it, my dudes. Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Like, and then I don't know. I'm not even gonna try to scroll into tier 4 right now, because I'm not taking it right now.
No, yeah, they clearly, yeah. It looks like there's plenty of mons you see as, hey, these are extremely good mons. They should be on a team.
Yeah. So basically, with their mistakes, Pokemon Jerry HD, what was your tier 1?
Well, okay. Tier 1, this was an easy pick for me. I understand it has fallen from grace a little bit, because it was like a star in Gen 6. It was the mon that would a lot of times even go first, overall. But now, because of just fat stuff, becoming, like, I guess, Toxapex, at least on the ladder, is a deterrent of it, but I would say, just more offensive options have definitely pushed this back a little bit. But Manaphy, I love Manaphy. I will say it here now, this is probably my most drafted mon in Gen 7, so I actively have to try to not draft it, because it just doesn't go as soon as I think it should all the time. So I understand I have a maybe slightly irrational love of it, but it's freaking Manaphy. It's base 100 across the board. It's a water type, so it has 2 weaknesses and a gluttony of great resists. And it has Tail Glow. Like, it literally destroys fat stuff with no effort, because it's bulky to take hits, and it just can Tail Glow up. And even if you do want to make it Z, it has great coverage, so you can use the coverage Z moves, or the most popular option being the Z Rain Dance, which gets rid of any status, in case anyone forgot that it actually does have hydration, and gives it speed, and boosts its water type moves. Like, that's so amazing. And people forget, it does get knockoff, it gets U-turn. Like, it has some options like Calm Mind, it has just so many cool techs that it can do, and so Manaphy was an easy first pick for me. I don't know about you, Tristan, but Manaphy just,
Manaphy is a good first pick. Like, you look at it, it's like, okay, let's see here. Like, I don't understand why people, like, who would draft Penny over Manaphy? Like, come on now, Max. I know you're better.
Yeah, I was gonna
than
say,
this.
you know who it is. You can see it right there.
Max, you're better than this. Come on, my dude. Manaphy is just so, like, yes, you said it was falling from grace, but it's still a dominant Pokemon out there. Like, you could easily lose to it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and that's just, like, its offensive capabilities. Everyone knows about that, but I'm gonna tell you right now, the defensive capabilities are amazing with it too. Because if you want to be that, do it that way, you can, like, if you can afford to, limit it to, generally speaking, Scald being one of your main attacks, and then, one other coverage move, which again, probably going to be Ice Beam. Like, that's, water ice coverage is great. But if you want to be defensive, you can literally run, Rest and Rain Dance. Or you can do the, standard Sleep Talk if someone else has Rain on the other side, which I have done multiple times, actually. And I've even walled out an entire Rain team that only had Kingdra as a, technically Rain abuser, but I literally just was, mostly physically defensive, and took on Terrakion, it took on Kingdra, it took everything, no problem, and I just rest up in the Rain. Like, I think it has the capabilities that, every base 100 generally does, in addition to just great typing and an underrated ability. I know Hydration is kind of a meh ability on most mons, but in Manaphy's case, spamming water is the way to go, and who doesn't like to surf in the rain? Oh, Manaphy. Sorry, I'm a little too excited here.
I get your excitement, because look at it, it's just there. It's like, if you're trying to draft a team, obviously Kakuna doesn't know how to draft bulky waters.
Yeah, there were so many waters to choose from.
Bulky waters.
Yeah, but like Manaphy stands out for me at least.
I didn't say it, but Azumarill, my dude. Like,
yes, I
might have said.
I know. Yeah, I know. Azumarill is one that you like as well, and you're right. There's a ton of water types here, but
a ton of them. And like Manaphy is one of those things that you could build around, and it will be so good.
Yes, I
agree. It's so good. So I mean, let's just leave it at that. we have to go to our tier 2 pick for you, Jared. What was it? Enlighten us.
Alright, so looking at tier 2, so he did mention obviously Melodic, but again, you know, I picked my preferred water type in Manaphy. I'm not a huge fan of Ferrothorn. Diggersby is a threat, but I'm on the fence on that. Like at this point, when I'm building team, Tristan said it in earlier, really. Volcanion, kind of trash. So I've never used it, but I'm interested in it. But But when I keep scrolling down, I see Alakazam. I'm not good with it, so I don't really use it. But then I see Celebi. Celebi is actually where I'm going with my tier 2, and
okay.
My reasoning here is, I think Celebi is really great. I understand it has a million weaknesses, but it's base 100 across the board again, which, yes, I draft a shit ton of legendaries. That's I always end up doing it because their stats are great, and so it just always happens, and this is no different here. But Celebi has amazing coverage, it has amazing utility, being, you know, Stealth Rocks, it has its reliable recovery, it has Nasty Plot, it has Swords Dance, it has Baton Pass, it, you know, that's legal here, so I can pass this elsewhere. And I mean, in general, it you know, just on Manaphy itself right here with these two members, it covers both water's weaknesses in grass and electric, so I felt like Celebi was just an easy thing to put together with Manaphy.
I mean, yeah, I see it really. It's like, and something that I want people to realize with these videos, it's...
Okay, well, Tristan's internet just went out, so... Or at least I assume it did. So I will say that... you know, I'm going to pick up where he left off. He said people don't realize... I mean, like, obviously there's many Mons here, but... Celebi, I think, is a Mon that... I know in the Hive itself, there's a debate about Shaymin versus Celebi, which... A lot of times, Celebi is tier 2 and Shaymin can be tier 3, but in this league, actually, Shaymin is 2A, Celebi is 2B. And for me, I'm getting an extra 20 points for a Mon that I would pick if it was in 2A, like easily, because it just has so much utility, it can really support a team, but you know, underrated aspect of it is, hey, it can do damage itself. Like, it's got the stats necessary to be defensive, it's got the stats necessary to be offensive, and it's honestly got the tools to, you know, portray both roles, being that recovery and the setup option. So, Celebi, definitely an easy pick for me. I think that this being here, not being drafted, I think is a little suspect, because it's just such a good Mon. Like, the drawback will always be if it is actually 7 weaknesses. I know I said a million earlier, but it's just, it overcomes those, in all honesty. It really does. And so, you know, times 4 weakness to Bug is unfortunate because of U-turn, but that can be patched up. That's not something I'm too worried about. So I'm gonna go on to tier 3 here with my first tier 3 pick. He mentioned it very much and kind of screamed about it. Tristan mentioned Alolan Ninetales. It's Gen 7. We like Alolan Ninetales in Gen 7 because Aurora Veil. Obviously, that's its main draw. Is, hey, this can just set, you know, both screens up in one turn. Like, hey, that's amazing. Like, that's something that nothing else can really do. And I think that in itself makes it extremely draftable. You know, Aurora Veil works on literally, you know, every type of team. Like, if you feel like you want to live some extra hits, there you go. And I mean, it's normally going to be used with setup because that's, hey, create your setup opportunity. That's perfect. And I already have 2 setup Mons that are great, so that already supports them, as well as you know, helping with grass types. Being the ice type it is, having those blizzards in this hail, that's perfectly accurate. It helps mitigate a little bit. I know Ninetales is weak, but it's really fast too. It actually, you know, now I have 2 base 100s and now 108, so that's nice speedy Mon, as well as ice and fairy coverage just absolutely destroys dragons, which dragons are huge threats in Draft League. So I think it's a great mon. Its typing to me is almost irrelevant in the sense of defensively speaking, because this is not going to live a whole lot of hits other than under Veil, and it can nasty plot up under Veil. Don't get me wrong here. Like, it can set up. Like, you can't forget that. And so it's definitely a threat in its own right, as well as, especially being almost like an ultimate support mon, because it is the best screens user, in my opinion. It is, what you want. Like, hey, you want both usually because you want to cover for both, and you don't have to even pick like, oh, I can only fit one move slot, reflect or light screen. No, Aurora Veil does both. So Ninetales, easy pick for me here, because that definitely stood out the most in tier 3, at least in my opinion. Because I mean, a lot of times I've seen it draft really early too, because people are like, oh, I think someone else is gonna take it, so Veil offense, I wanna just be on top of it immediately, and I think that's honestly fair. Like, a lot of people will pick it earlier than it maybe warrants as a mon of itself, because it's not just a mon for itself. It's a mon that supports everyone else, and I think it supports the rest of my team extremely well, allowing me to go more of an offensive direction, because I do play a more offensive style than Tristan. So I think that's also another interesting aspect here, is that while he might have drafted bulky offensive team with his Weedle version, my Kakuna version is pretty offensive, although I do have both Manaphy and Celebi with defensive capabilities, so I'm not discounting that at all. And with that, I'm going to next use my tier 3, and the next tier 3 on my list is actually Tornadus, because it is definitely a big threat. And again, yes, I picked a bunch of legendaries, so you can say whatever you want about that, but they're good, and I'm gonna use them. And so Tornadus, a lot of people don't like using either Tornadus form for the sake of just hurricanes. Can miss being its best stab move, generally speaking, because its special attack is higher. But it's a speedy mon. It's now my fastest mon, and it's prankster, so it gets the tailwind. It honestly could rain dance for Manaphy, and it just in general is at least great mon in my opinion, because it has solid coverage all around. It gets knockoff, it gets acrobatics, it gets superpower, it gets heat wave, it gets sludge wave. Like, it has a plethora of options. It also has bulk up, and in this sense, with this mon, it's a priority bulk up, and a lot of people like to do like a rest sleep talk version of that, because sleep talk will then be prankster. And so in general, it has all the setup options I need for the support from Ninetales, as well as just being a solid mon in its own right because of that coverage. It's got natural decent bulk. It's not bulky mon by any means, but it's a great offensive mon in my mind, and it just provides another layer of team support with that tailwind. So I'm thinking here, what better mon than Tornadus, because it's just a solid all-around mon, honestly, and it's moderately priced in tier 3 in my opinion. It's not too expensive, I'm not breaking the bank by any means, and it's just a great mon that's very reliable. But after Tornadus, I'm looking at tier 4, and I'm not too sure what I'm wanting, but something does actually catch my eye, and I'm thinking to myself, what about Drapion? Drapion's an interesting mon, at least to me. Like, I think it's actually pretty good, but it's in tier 4 for a good reason. It's very weak because it's starting off attack point is I think like 95 at most. I mean, I don't even know, but it's running knockoff, poison jab, earthquake, aqua tail. Like, it has that coverage on its own is pretty good, and then in addition, it gets pursuit, which is really useful for opposing ghost types, especially. At least looking at my team so far, I do have Celebi to cover for, And Celebi, in turn, they cover for each other very well, because its only weakness is ground, which also Tornadus is fine with, and I have no other ground weaknesses at this point, so I'm very content with picking Drapion here. It gives Toxic Spikes, that is one option, because I want to set up on people, so that forces their hand when, hey, they have to deal with a Toxic Spike, and maybe even fail, so they might want to defog. Well, I have, now ways to force them to do it, as well as Drapion can be used in some niche roles that it gets Whirlwind, it gets more or less, like, it gets Swords Dance, so it can be another setup option under the Veil. But since it's tier 4, I'm not expecting it to be, a centerpiece by any means, but instead it's more gonna be a support mon in that it covers typings because of the key resistances, as well as it's just a great utility mon that it can stab, knock off everything, it can Toxic Spikes, it can Whirlwind around, it can, do so many different things, and I think that's, versatility is huge always in a team, and although this is going to be a very offensive team, this is a mon that can be built bulk, with bulk. Honestly, like it and the typing lends it to be especially defensive mon a lot of times. So Drapion at tier 4, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm not going to say this one needs to be drafted all the time. However, dark types are very valuable, and at least I would say, because psychic types and ghosts don't have any resists really. So it's definitely, dark types are going to be something that you want to grab your hands on, and I felt Drapion was a good value pick for that. Then, next up in tier 5 is a mon that I really love. I don't think it's very popular, and I understand why, because it's an electric type that is really slow, and that's Vikavolt. But, I'm here to tell you, it's a good mon. And in tier 5, I think that's a steal. Because, while its bug electric type is, it's relatively unique, it has Levitate, so it is an electric type that's not weak to ground, which I felt was important because Drapion here is weak to ground, and I do have a tendency to draft ground weak teams or ice weak teams. That's generally, basically I lose to Mammoth Swine with a lot of my teams. Like, that's how, that just seems to always be how I draft. But Vikavolt here, amazing special attack at 145. Speed has, something left to be desired, but it does get agility. So under Veil, perfect opportunity to agility up. It does get Roost, so it can be used defensively, which I have used it defensively in the past. Like, one team I had didn't have anything for an extra drill. Vikavolt was actually my extra drill counter, and it worked perfectly because a lot of people don't expect it, and it definitely can surprise. It has solid bulk, and it has that recovery that is just oh so valuable, and its coverage is actually really good. It has the electric move, it has the bug moves, it has energy ball, it has flash cannon, it just has options, and you can always tech a hidden power on if need be. So Vikavolt to me, solid value in tier 5. I would like to see it get drafted a lot more personally, but I understand a lot of people's hesitance because they'll pick a faster electric type to volt switch around. But as Tristan mentioned with his team, slow volt switches are very good too. Like, don't sleep on that, because I can take the hit with a Vikavolt, volt switch out into another threat, and really break the game open. And then on its own, it can break the game open, being a huge wall breaker. So Vikavolt to me, if it got defog, I bet it would be drafted more. But since it doesn't, I'm content with it not having defog. I understand right now my only defog support is Tornadus. However, I promise you that will be amended later. And so, with that out of the way, tier 5, I'm going on to Megas here. And originally, I had a rendition of this team that was slightly different. I scrapped it midway through because I felt like I could honestly make a better team. And the next 3 mons really, really are why. Like, these next 3 mons are an amazing combo of mons, in my opinion at least, and some underrated threat, at least, especially right here, is Mega Garchomp. I know it's slower than regular Garchomp. I understand that. But its bulk and power are just insane. And that's it's a rocks user, since at this point I have hazards on Celebi and Drapion currently, so that's nice for the team overall. And in addition, dragons are always good. Under Veil, oh man, that's gonna be so hard to kill. And it gets Sword Stance. Like, hey, you want to take a +2 Outrage or Earthquake? No, nothing does. Like, it's just so strong and so bulky. And also in this league, you don't have to Mega Evolve first turn. So if I need the speed and not the power yet, I can keep it as regular Garchomp until I need that extra power. So, or bulk. And so I think I've used this before. I do really enjoy it because it gets me an extra 20 points for a Mon that's really good. Like, I'm glad to take those extra 20 points and just enjoy a Mon that, like, regular Garchomp is freaking amazing. It's always drafted. This is, a slightly worse version of regular Garchomp. And I feel that it should be drafted many times. I can understand when it wouldn't be, because Megas are a whole different monster because of just the limited how many there are, and then in addition to how you want to build your team. I kind of scrapped what I was doing before, and once I decided on Mega Garchomp, that's how I really like to fill out this team. So I think it honestly can be a nice defensive Mon, it can be a nice offensive Mon, it can be just a speedy tank, it can do so many different things for my team that I feel like it's just a great Mega in general anyway. But on this team, it's extra threatening because next pick in my because I have extra points. I have a lot of points left over, man. I have a couple Mons, or I have one Mon in V, being Celebi, and then I have now an extra 20 points from picking Mega Garchomp, and I'm getting Excadrill. How this did not get drafted, I will never know. Excadrill is so good. It's so good. Like, I understand it. A lot of people feel like, oh, it forces you to run sand or whatever. And that's not entirely true. Excadrill is good without sand, but it's just made so much better when the possibility of sand is there. And I think it's just such an easy thing to do. There's many sand setters now. There's Tyranitar, there's, Hippowdon, there's Gigalith. If you really want, there's Hippopotas. There's options there. And so Excadrill for me was an easy pick because I know I have now 2 ground types, but they don't even share any weaknesses. So that's actually really important to me, is that they don't actually share any weaknesses despite both being the ground type, and they do different things because Excadrill also provides spin. It's another stealth rocker, which is very nice to have, and it's definitely something that I've used a lot, and I'm sure most people have at least tried once, because you always draft sand at least once because it's just pretty easy, and the sand mons are pretty good. Like you saw just in the tiering here, Tyranitar is tier 1A, Hippowdon's tier 2B. Like, sand is good. The mons that use sand are good. So Excadrill for me, pretty easy pick, being a extra rapid spinner. I don't want to use rapid spin too much, but its offensive capabilities are amazing. They are amazing because ground steel is just good typing, and I have coverage for the things that it might bother it. And there's even one Mon in particular later that really helps out with, at least the most common thing that I think of is like a flying steel type, like a Skarmory or a Celesteela that walls this. So, or even a grass type, and that's easily done away with fire. But I'll get to the when we'll get there. Don't you worry, because next up, ooh baby, this completes the trio. I think it's not a surprise at this point after you just saw Mega Garchomp and Excadrill. It's Gigalith. Gigalith on its own is actually pretty good now, I would say, because the Spadef boost really helps with sand. However, in addition to that, now it supports both Garchomp and Excadrill, with the now Sand Force being active on both, as well as Sand Rush for Excadrill. Like, that power is noticeable. It's no joke. Like, Garchomp's already like base 170 attack or something like that, and now the ground, steel, and rock moves get boosted. Like, wow. And you're also talking about, hey, I have Veil available to me, so all these setup mons just you can imagine the possibilities. And now you have to fear Excadrill being in the sand, in addition to being behind a veil. So, like, I think that's just great. It gives me another Stealth Rocker, so I'm collecting my Stealth Rocks everywhere now, which that's usually a problem of my teams. I do not draft a whole lot of Hazard Setters, but this team does not have a problem with that. And it does give me my first, like, really defensive Mon, I would say, but I would also argue that Celebi and Manaphy, with the stats they have, can be very defensive very easily. And so, Gigalith, while it also, it is very defensive, it also has offensive capabilities. Its attack is pretty big, and it gets strong moves like Stone Edge, Explosion, and Superpower, Earthquake, so Gigalith is no joke. I think it's a solid Mon, and 9 times out of 10 it honestly should be drafted, because Sand is just so good that someone's got to do it. Like, someone's got to draft some Sand, and it's so easy because even if you don't get Excadrill, you could still get a Sand Slash as a cheap Sand Rusher, or you can get Stoutland, which I would advocate Stoutland above Sand Slash for sure. But it's just such an easy way to, get some extra utility out of these Mons that are lower points. And maximizing your points is an easy way to really threaten your opponent in both prep and play. So definitely getting my money's worth here with Gigalith. And with Gigalith now out of the way, that fire type has come. Because while fire types aren't really a big issue to me, at least in my opinion, this one is a giant threat, and it was even pointed out by Tristan. It's Blacephalon. A lot of people are weary because it is frail. But that's where the Veil comes in, that gives me this confidence to say, hey, you know what? I'm willing to use Blacephalon. It also gives me a nice layer of speed, which, I mean, speed's not a huge issue on this team because I'm a pretty fast team overall, but if I'm going offensive, speed is definitely something I want in as many Mons as I can, and Blacephalon gives me that. It's dual, typing of Ghost and Fire are just great, because Ghost is just such a great offensive typing that there's not many resistances. I am not worried about Dark types, considering I have Alolan Ninetales, and then I just have other things that have fairy coverage in Dazzling Gleam, like Manaphy and Celebi, and so I think that this has an opportunity to really excel on this team. It could be Calm Mind with that Veil. Z moves make it amazing, especially with Z Mind Blown being so strong. And Beast Boost is, it's a free speed up or special attack boost, and that's just amazing. Like, I think Blacephalon, I understand a lot of people are hesitant to draft it, but I think it's fair, honestly, in Tier 2A, because it can be so threatening. Because with support, it can be a great wall breaker, it can be a sweeper, and I think that value is really nice. I know it's a glass cannon, but I think with this team I can support it. Although I don't have a crazy defensive backbone by any means, I think I have enough bulk on this team that's not a big deal. And lastly, this Mon, I'm not saying needs to be drafted for sure, but I wanted a fighting type. I didn't have a whole lot of points left, but honestly, I know a lot of people shit on it, but I don't think it's that bad. And the Mon that I feel isn't that bad is going to be, wow, I can't even find it because it's somewhere in one of the Tier 5s. It's Hitmonchan. It's another spinner just in case, because I don't want to have Excadrill be spinning. I don't want to have Tornadus defogging. So it gives me just another option, but since I'm offense, I'm not as worried about hazards, because I'm going to try to be threatening them all the time. But honestly, Hitmonchan, it also gets bulk up, so it has the setup options if I really want it. It has Mach Punch, it has all the elemental punches, and it has Iron Fist to boost it all. So Hitmonchan, I think under this team can be solid, and I think in general it can be decent. It's not going to be a game breaker by any means, but it is going to cover at least what I felt. Rocks are kind of annoying, but they're not the worst thing in the world. So a fighting type just seemed natural, and especially one that could spin seemed solid. And I think in tier 5 I can get utility out of this without having to spend a whole lot of points. So Hitmonchan, I feel like, is a solid addition to this team, and I think it wraps up this team in a nice bow, because it's Veil offense, dude. Like, what? It's a threatening Veil offense with some quite the amount of setup sweepers, in all honesty, and just breakers and all over the spectrum there of power, both on the physical and special side. So it's got the sand element, it's got the tailwind support, it's got the Veil support. It just has so many different layers to the team that I really like how it turned out. And I guess I am willing to say open challenge to anyone, just like Tristan did, but I'm also still competing in Hive, so we'll have to figure out the times on when to battle if you really want to. But with that, I think this team has been explained pretty thoroughly, as much as I can, and hopefully Tristan's internet comes back so we can do the Beedrill edition together, because that's going to be his team, so you definitely don't want to miss out on that. And thank you for watching this and the last one especially, and I hope we have shown you the best of the rest in the Hive Kakuna. Bye!